So, but using the data scraper tool, I was able to like get the individual events URL, the title of it, the date, the speakers. I'll get their organization, their website, their email address, and like what their organization does, etc. And I'm super excited about it. So that's what I wanted to share.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to do that so quickly.
Hey folks, I wanted to welcome all of you to another No Code Ops event. And today we have Phil, co-founder and CEO of Switchboard and No Code Ops, hosting an interview and product walkthrough with Kareem, co-founder and CEO of Clay. Yay! For those of you who are new here, I'm Shaf and I run the community at No Code Ops, and you've just tuned into one of our bi-weekly live events. And today's event is going to be a two-part session where we will first have somewhat of an interview with Kareem to learn more about him, his background, how Clay came to be, and the next half would be a personalized product walkthrough led by Kareem himself.
Thanks so much, Shaf, and thanks for joining, Kareem, and hey, everyone watching in and tuning in. Super excited to have you here. Clay solves so many problems for so many people in so many ways, so I'm excited to jump in. We met very early on, when we were thinking about No Code Ops and Switchboard, and y'all have been like phenomenal supporters of us, and so it's cool to also support you guys. And by the way, congrats on the recent product hunt launch. Did y'all land at like number 1, number 2? Where are you at landing?
Yeah, no, thanks, Phil. We were number 1 for the day and for the week, and we'll see the month later.
Oh yeah, I love it. So good. So cool to watch the journey. So I'd love, if you could just start off just by introducing yourself and your background and kind of what led you to starting a 4-letter domain.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'll start off by giving you like just a quick overview of my background and like how I came around to starting Clay. So I'm an engineer. I was trained as an electrical engineer, and I've always been in software. I started off actually in product, and I've worked at Microsoft. I've worked at like the Wall Street Journal. I've worked at fast-growing startups, like Series B startups. So in like different stages of the company. And when you work in product, you see a lot of problems from like customer success and sales everywhere around the company. You're kind of the glue between the company and also like hearing customer requests. And you have to balance, what is like the top priority for the engineering team from internal requests and external requests. And what I found is that often internal requests would get deprioritized for external work, which makes sense. Surprise. And as every company becomes a software company, in the sense that it's like powered by a lot of software to like automate things internally, we, when we started the company, I was thinking about how do we make software easier to use for internal use cases, right? How do we make it more accessible for non-engineers to craft software essentially to automate their own tasks, like hence the like name Clay. And the idea is to be able to not necessarily, I think in the no code world, there's a lot of like, I actually think no code and low code are less of a product category and more of an approach to building software, right?
Yeah.
And so you can add no code features and low code features to lots of different verticals. And then there are some horizontal products within them. But within that, what we were thinking is you could, create like a no code tool to build products, like new products. And that's like a very cool and interesting category. Mm-hmm. And then there's a very different world where we're saying, hey, there's a bunch of people like in sales, customer success, recruiting, who can think like a programmer, and their world can be really opened up in terms of what they can do if they have access to that. But they're not necessarily trying to build new products that monetize it. They're just trying to make their work easier. And so that was kind of the foundation of like the universe or like the space of like problems that I was thinking about when we were starting Clay.
And I love that inspiration around that specific audience. It's obviously something we're super focused on too. And like, I remember years into building no code stuff, not even knowing that it had a name. I finally found out it had a name, right? I was so jazzed that like there's other people like me in the world. And I felt like I was like a nerd sitting with like all the other nerds like me at the, like I finally found the lunch table of other nerds. And then I found out I was playing the wrong board game because like everybody in the space cared about like, at least on Twitter, right? Like talking about how to use no code to start a business and not run one. And that's like all I wanted to care about. And so that's so cool to hear that you're like a similar origin story on this front. So how do you go from that inspiration, right? And like wanting to work with that audience? Like how was Clay the thing you landed on? Can you just give a brief overview of like what Clay is as well?
Yeah, totally. So I think I'll start off with what Clay is, and then happy to give also a little bit
Much better. Yeah.
around how we got there. But Clay is the first spreadsheet that automates data gathering, right? It's basically a spreadsheet that fills itself. Our customers are sales, marketing, and recruiting teams that are looking to stop copy-pasting data from around the web, hiring up workers to fill out spreadsheets, or having engineers do custom work to create live lists of people and companies. A big really like thing about the product is that we think customers are creative, right? And so we've built a creative tool essentially for them to build these lists of people and companies that they need for the various tasks. And I'll give like a couple of concrete examples, but and I'll actually show them in the demo. But yeah, let's say that you have a bunch of inbound signups and you want to know which of the people that have signed up are actually great leads for you. There's tools right now, like data enrichment tools like Clearbit or People Data Labs or other things that try to give you a picture of who that person is. But what we found is that you actually need a tool to let you combine lots of different data sources and work with them in a spreadsheet, which is where the data often ends up, to give you flexibility in terms of what data are you looking for exactly. If you can't find it from a data provider, how do you go and get it from somewhere else? Because often people would use these data providers and then still have to do a lot of manual work. So this is kind of like an all-in-one solution for that.
Yep. I jokingly joke around when I tell people, like they say, "Oh, what's Clay?" I go, "It's kind of like if you could VLOOK up the whole internet."
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly it. And it's really just a way to combine lots of like disparate data sources into a spreadsheet without needing external tools. So you could have in the past maybe used Zapier and Google Sheets and connected a bunch of different things.
Yep.
But what we found is that, let's say you're sending data from Zapier into a Google Sheet. Well, you don't know where the data came from. And if you accidentally delete it, it's gone. It's not going to get refreshed. So
plug for Switchboard hopes to fix that problem one day. But sorry, go on. Yeah.
No.
From a different angle.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be like a variety of different tools for a variety of like these different use cases because they are a fat long tail. So that's kind of like our core. Like the bread and butter is really like building lists of people and companies by combining all of these different data sources. It's the same for recruiters. You might want to, let's say, take a look at a GitHub repo and see who started it, and then see if any of these engineers work with particular languages that you're looking for, and then see if they're a good fit for the company you're hiring for. But you could also use that on the sales side. You might be an open source company, and you want to look at your own GitHub repo or competitors' GitHub repos and see people from which companies are starring it. They might be potentially good leads for you. So it's just giving you the power to do that. And actually, the image that I have in my mind of Clay is a spreadsheet that has like these automated arms coming out of it that can go and pull the data for you.
Give me all the data.
Exactly.
Please feel free to use that clip for any promotional materials. So let me ask. So before we jump into the demo, which I'm super excited to go into, and I have tons of questions for you. A lot of what we've talked about so far is using that spreadsheet. A spreadsheet almost like it's a database that is joining a bunch of data from a bunch of disparate sources, typically externally. But one thing I see, and I talk to a lot of no-code operations professionals about, is they have the systems internally, whether they're in Salesforce or Airtable or whatever, and they want to join that data in one place without getting a data engineer involved.
Yeah.
internally. Like, does Clay do that type of stuff yet, or will it? Like, I'm curious.
Yeah, we're definitely doing that because it's just another integration. It's kind of I think we're really good at the external stuff and we're getting better at the internal stuff. It's like the next spot for us.
Cool.
But and I'll show in some of the examples, right? There's various. As you know, we launched on Product Hunt. We got a great response, which we're really grateful for from the community. And out of that are coming out like new use cases. So people are also using Clay to do a lot of data gathering, for, like web scraping and building lists of things that we didn't even think about. There was someone who set up a demo recently, and they have a bunch of students and they want to pull the data of how active they are on Discord and then also how many go-to webinars they've been to. Right? That's not something that I've thought of, but
Jeff.
yeah, it's something that you could do in Play and then work with the data. I mean, really part of the inspiration is why we picked the spreadsheet, and this goes a little bit to the history of how we thought about enabling people to build software or to like write software. We thought about spreadsheets as the world's most popular programming environment already, right? It really is a
It
input
is.
output. And I think the thing that we realized is how our spreadsheets, like Google Sheets took spreadsheets and put them on the web, but the spreadsheets are unaware of the data on the web. So they're kind of unaware of the internet. They don't know that you can go, like you said, VLOOKUP for SAS for the internet is like, they don't know, hey, go to Salesforce, pull this data, or go to my Postgres database and pull this data.
Unless you use G Connector, and God, please don't use G Connector.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember we used to, because we tried to do that at one of the companies I was at, and like every hour on the hour, you'd hear all of our machines go, because like we called it the witching hour because it was like the time that G Connector was like pulling all of Salesforce into a G sheet.
Yeah.
Oh man, nightmares. Still have nightmares. Well, on the dream side of the world, I'd love to just hop in. Do you want to share your screen and show us, some of like the basic demo of Clay and some of the items that you think this audience in particular on an operational front would be interested in? And I'll have 1,000,000,006 questions.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do that. So this Clay, and I'm starting off with a blank table. And on the surface, first impression, it's pretty simple. It looks like a spreadsheet with structured columns. So each column has a type. And then we have two new ideas here. So sources will let you pull more records, in other words, rows into Clay. And then integrations are ways to pull more columns that either pull new data into Clay or push data out into another system. So that's kind of the basic premise. And I'm going to show you as a first example, I'm just going to show you what it looks like to do a basic sales use case. So for example, we'll imagine that we have a type form, a form where people sign up and let's say they want a demo of the product or they're signing up to the product. And how we get that data into Clay, and then we can validate or we can take a look at the person who signed up and see if they're a good fit or not. So to do that, I'm going to add a source. And there's a bunch of different sources here. We're constantly adding new ones, but let me just start off with the webhook. A webhook is a way to send any data into Clay. And so what a webhook is just a little URL. And I'm going to take this URL. I'm going to go to Typeform. Typeform has a section for webhooks. And I'm going to add this webhook in here.
So for anyone also just from like the no code side, like I highly recommend just learning a bit about webhooks, like going into it a bit, because if you learn webhooks, platforms like Zapier or Clay just become so much more extensible with like very little like technical knowledge.
Yeah. And the word webhook sounds technical and sounds like complex, but it really is just a URL. And once you have that URL, you can give it to other products that know how to call that URL with certain data. So let's say John at stripe.com signs up for your product. You instantly see that the data got received here. And so here's the data that I received. It's pretty complex data that comes in from Typeform, but all it is the form response. You can see that there's an answer and one of the answers is an email. So what you do is you take what
I
I'm doing.
love how, by the way, I love how you have visually made JSON payloads beautiful. This is
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. So this is a JSON payload, right? And all I'm doing is taking this information that we received, and then I'm just going to add it to the table.
Amazing.
And so now what I'm going to do is, now that I have this email, I can start looking at Clay's integrations and see, okay, what can I get given this email? And there's a lot of things that we can do. So let's use People Data Labs. People Data Labs and Clearbit are companies that have information about people given their email address. And so I'm going to select, let's enrich a person. If you have your own API key, you can use it, or you can use Clay's API key. And then an API key is
If someone signs up for Clay, by the way, how much free do they get with
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a very active discussion.
I had to call it out.
Yeah. So our pricing is going to include like a trial period where you can access the full functionality of Clay. And then we're going to shut off like the premium enrichments, the ones that cost us a lot of money. And you can still, if you bring your own API key, if you have an account, you can use it. If not, you have to sign up to Clay. And when you sign up to Clay, you're going to be able to use the product with all of the like built-in enrichments, and then you can buy data packs
Cool.
from us. Or if you have accounts directly with some of these providers, you can use them yourself.
Cool. Then you could BYO API.
Exactly. That's exactly. We were saying bring your own data.
Cool. Love it.
So all I'm doing here is telling Clay this. What this screen is showing me is that in order to enrich a person, here's a bunch of different ways I could do it. And People Data Labs has a bunch of these different options. But I'm going to use the email address since that's what I have. And here what I'm doing is doing something we call binding. So this is a common like programming thing, but what I'm saying is the email address comes from the email column. And once you do that, I can run this, and voila, I got a bunch of information about this person. And I'll show you a way to do this much faster, but this is kind of like a way where you're building a workflow.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of information about John, including the LinkedIn. So I'm going to add that actually. We can take a look here.
And for folks watching Kareem as he does this, like another really great thing to think about this for is, and I know Clearbit has like their own offering on this front, but it seems like much more extensible to do it through Clay, which is imagine all these fields you ask for somebody in a form to know if they're a good lead or not. Now all you need is their email. So you will increase the amount of people signing up because you've asked for less fields, and boom, you can get all of this great stuff in one place.
Yeah. And it's very flexible, so I'll show you exactly where we can get to. So it's not just about, hey, if you want to, the simpler the form is, the higher the rate of completion for it, and then you can get all of the data automatically. So, I got the LinkedIn, I got where this person works, right? And then with that, I could do a couple of interesting things. So I could say, for example, well, let's see how much money Stripes makes, because maybe that's the way that I decide whether they're a good lead or not. So I can give Clay the domain, which is in the website field, to a company called Owler. And then what Owler does is it has information about a company, and we can see what is the latest funding round, or I can add their latest revenue, right? Other things you could do is to say, well, let's actually, does John, let's say that you're actually a dev-based company, or you sell to developers, and you want to know, does this person have a GitHub account? Well, there's no kind of direct way to get that. Sometimes People Data Labs has it, but you can literally Google things. So
what?
You can automate Google queries. I think this is a pretty wild feature. So let me show you what that looks like. You can take a person, let's say
You
their
can take
name.
the token of something you already have.
Yeah. So I'm going to use the name, and then I'm gonna write the word GitHub just as if I was Googling something. And let's see what we get. There we go.
I'm losing my mind.
Right? And it's pretty wild.
That is amazing.
We did get John Collision's GitHub account, and we can add that to the table as well.
And then you can use that to get other things.
Yeah, we can get information about what are the most popular repos he's contributed to, or like what languages has he been most active in, right?
And then you could go into that link, right? And can you scrape from there in a structured manner?
Yeah, and sometimes, so the way that Clay works is if there's an API, we'll use the API. If there isn't an API, we can scrape it. And I'll show you actually some pretty wild things that we can do in scraping. And remember, this table, as I'm building it out, I'm building it for one person. This will work for any new sign up automatically.
Anyone.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So yeah, we got the LinkedIn. We can pull information about, let's say, so in this case, we were actually able to find LinkedIn through People Data Labs. But again, we can add another Google search. For example, let's use the name again, right? And type in LinkedIn and see if we can get the LinkedIn account. And I'll show you what we can do from there. So we did get the LinkedIn account. And then from here, we can then go to our LinkedIn integrations and say, enrich a person from a LinkedIn profile, right? And then we can get information about them from the LinkedIn profile.
Unreal.
What's also really cool is this get counts of roles at company. So this is a pretty interesting one, which is...
How's that? Yeah, what's that?
So given a company's LinkedIn profile, we can basically find out if how many people exist or how many people work at that company for a specific job title. And this is really, really powerful because in this case, let's say we're qualifying this person. John signs up and we want to know how many salespeople do they have because we're selling sales software, right? And I'll show you an example how this works. So let me actually change this query to, instead of using the person's name, we'll use the company name. And we have the company name. So right here, enrich company by domain. So we use the company name.
And by the way, I'm sure you get this question all the time, but as you're building this, what happens if the query, right, if like the token you're using is too general or it gets it wrong or, you know what I mean? Like, what do you do there?
So there's a number of things. One thing is that you can, this is why it's a spreadsheet. So like, let's take a look here, right? This is the revenue that I got automated. Let's say it's wrong. I can just edit it. Which made a bunch of extra money. And then we leave a little note that you've edited this cell. So let's say that it needs some correction, and manually someone is going to look at it. And we're thinking about how to help with this in the future as well. If you need to hire someone, for example, to manually look at it and maybe spend a few minutes kind of making sure everything is correct.
Yep.
But also you could change the query and try to tighten it up.
Yep.
So now that we've got the LinkedIn, we can say, okay, let's look at this. So here, let's use the first search result. This is the LinkedIn. And then for job title, let's say it has the word sales. And then let's say that we want to know, are they still there? True. Let's see how many salespeople they have. And then we can just run this. 301 employees. So now you can say, hey, if this company has, more than 50 salespeople, then they're a good fit for us. And you can even have the status. I won't do this right now because it's still something that we're working on, but you can have a status field get set automatically. And that will tell you true or false whether there's more than 50 employees. So you can basically write a little formula here.
Yep.
And in the formula, you can say if there's more than 50 employees in one of these results, then set to good fit or bad fit. Yeah, and then you can do this for any company, and you can basically.
So from one email.
Yeah, from one email, we got all that information. Let me just
Unreal. Let me ask you this.
yeah.
What's like one of the more interesting, surprising use cases that you've seen that you like were not expecting anyone ever to do with Clay?
Oh, interesting. So this one is and I'll get into like a couple more demos as well, but there's one that's pretty wild, I think, that is I can't show it to you without showing you their actual work.
Sure.
But what they did is that they are a marketplace for e-commerce stores.
Yep.
And as they were bringing on new vendors on their marketplace, they wanted to know if that particular vendor also has a Shopify store. So we would try to find their other store. And if they were already on Shopify, we would use Shopify's APIs to pull all the product that they sell on Shopify. And what they wanted to do is to compare them against the products that they sell on their platform and see the difference between those ones. And so then they could have their customer success reps message those vendors and say, hey, we saw that you're selling these other products on Shopify. Can you bring them over to our platform? And they did the whole thing in Clay, and it saved them. It was kind of one of those like dream ideas for growth and like customer
Right. That you just like, done. It's done.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Cool. What other demos you got up your sleeve that would be relevant to this audience? So that's like, I guess like the sales prospecting kind of, even like the MQL like side.
Yeah.
What else do you got?
Oh, lots of other things. So let me show you one on the recruiting side. And there's a couple of cool things that I can hear.
Sorry, my chief of staff's over here like waving her hands in the air because she's working on all of our recruiting stuff right now.
Yeah. So recruiting, I think, is a creative process, right? Like you need to figure out new ways to find people, and then you want to message them with something relevant, right? So I'll show you a couple of different techniques here. One super simple idea would be, okay, so we started off with this table, right? And the idea again with Clay is like, how do you build the list? Where do you start from? So actually, let me just start from the source first. So let's say that we've seen a couple of teams do this. It's a pretty clever technique. We have a couple of different sources here to populate a table. So you can go.
So you don't have to manually populate it yourself or wait on an action somewhere else.
No. You can literally say, hey, I want to pull all of the people that are following me on Twitter, right? Then I just connect my Twitter account. I'm going to type in, or you could type in anybody's Twitter URL, but I'm just going to type in mine. And then I'll show you something really cool. So I showed you the blank table. We also have a template called a people table, since this is a pretty frequent action, which kind of automates gathering data from multiple different sources about people. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So when I click Add to a people table, this just pulled all of my Twitter users, and it will continue to pull them. So it's a live source. Every day, it's going to pull all of the new Twitter followers that I have. And it also then populated them in what we call these lookup fields. So if you start off from a LinkedIn or an email or a Twitter URL, we went ahead and tried to get more information about this person. So, the table, we're working on making sure that we fill out even more of the data, but this is a good start. And then you can start to filter, let's say,
my chief of staff is literally doing this live for our recruiting efforts right now.
Yeah.
Like as you're talking. I'm like, yep.
Like I'm right here.
So let's say that we add the bio for this person, for like people, and then what we can do is to start to say something like, well, let's filter by people's bios that contains the word like, dev or whatever it is, or strategy.
Yep.
And then you can see, okay, like how many people have that in their title, right?
We have a question, by the way, from the audience.
Please. Yeah. Oh, any questions? feel free to comment. Yeah, Chef, go for it.
Yeah, Courtney was asking, how do you match them?
How do you match them? Can you say more about that? Match them to their jobs, or like how do you get more information about
Chef,
them?
do you want to invite Courtney just up to ask so
Yeah,
you can
I
go
was
back?
just about to.
All right, here we go.
Courtney,
Hey, how's it going?
good.
Yeah,
Yep,
so maybe
got my mind blown. No big deal.
yeah, uh, getting pinged everywhere. I should turn off notifications, but maybe I missed this. So when you say you're going to poll your Twitter followers on a daily basis, like how are you matching them with the other enriched data? Is it just based off of their name, or like how are you matching their LinkedIn profile with their Twitter and emails?
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that we're doing in the background. So you saw how I built kind of a workflow. We have like a workflow that we've been building that's kind of trying to take the best in class rules of thumbs and techniques. And what we do is all you have to do is enter a Twitter URL, and we go and call 3 to 4 different data providers in order. And then we use that data, we mesh it together, and then we try to Google their name and try to find their LinkedIn URL from that. So we have like a couple of different things where we try to match the data across multiple data providers to give you like a quick kind of way to find who this person is. But a lot of the information we can get directly from Twitter, right? Like their name. Often like they have their company in their bio.
Right.
And then if that's not good enough, or if it's wrong, you can go and use the integrations to kind of build your own workflow. But the main thing is being able to at least just get your Twitter followers into a table so you can start working with that.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah. So that's one kind of interesting recruiting tactic. Another one is to pull GitHub repos, which works the same way. So I won't show you that one right now because I'll show you something else that I think is also pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So let's go to this website. So this is a website. It's basically a website, like a list of like people who work in design. And let's say that you want to pull this list of people and put them into a table so that you can contact them. And there's multiple ways in which you could do this, but I'm going to show you something that I think is really powerful. So we've built an extension. So I showed you how to pull data in when...
if this is going where I think it's going, where you can just visually select elements, I'm going to lose my mind.
That's literally where it's going. So
yeah!
So I've already, but it's even crazier than that, Phil. So
there's more?
Yeah. So I'll show you how we select elements. So you can create what we call a recipe, and then you can literally start to select data. So this shows you like, you just have to tell us where the data is that you're going to select. So I'm going to say, this is how I select data. And then I can say, for example, this is their Twitter handle, right? And so now it pulled all of them. Or like, this is their location, multiverse, right? And now that you've built this, I'm just going to add this. It created this recipe. But as you can see here, this is a recipe that I created, but you only have to do this once. So we have something called Clay verified recipes. So anytime we see a recipe that's created or one that's created by us, we can make it public. And so no one has to do that selection ever again, actually. Once one person creates a scraper for this website, you never have to do it again. So it's basically a crowdsourced scraping mechanism. And the way this works is I can just click like add to workspace, and I should have...
This replaces like 4 tools in one.
Yeah, it's very exciting, right? So now I just have this list of people in this table, and now I can go and do all kinds of things. I can use a Twitter integration to get the account detail given a Twitter link, right? And I can see, how many followers does this person have? Are they a good fit, right? I got so much information from Twitter here. What is their... I mean, some of the information they already had, but like, how many friends do they have? How many statuses do they have? How active are they? You can get their profile image and just put it into the table, and you can... So I just created a column and it assumes that it's text, but I tell it this is an image, right? And so that's kind of the power of Clay. I'm working in real time right now, basically creating a program that runs on demand. And one of the things that we don't have right now, but I'm going to add very soon, is I just scraped this website once, but now that we know how to scrape it, in the future, we're going to make it so that this table can go and scrape that website on demand every day and show you what's new. So you can see, hey, is this list?
Was someone added or something?
Exactly.
Okay, crazy question. Could you also add in like OpenAI, like GPT-3 here, right? To be like, when I pull people in and I like say, put them at a certain status, like that I do want to reach out to them, right?
Yeah.
That it can automatically draft some type of email for them based on everything you know about them, and like basically pre-write that first hook for you that's like unique to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are working, so we're adding new integrations all the time, and we've been playing around with like different ideas, and I love that one. So we can definitely do that, and then we can take that message and put it into an email sender. So we can't send emails yet from Clay, but we can put it into one of the tools that does, with a pre-drafted message, and then you can just go through it and quickly adjust it to what you want and have them send up. Yeah. And we might actually do that from Clay, so that you can quickly go through the list, see what the message looks like, and if you feel good about
Edit it if we want or whatever. Yeah.
Go through the message, edit it, send it. Go through the message, edit it, send it, and your productivity will at least 10x from that to be able to send real.
Because at least you get the first draft of like what it should look like based on what your goals are. And oh my God, I love that. Yeah, that's huge. And the fact that it can be done from a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And we'll be adding like, special UI to actually go through lists of people and companies, since that's a very, popular use case, in order to be able to do some of the things that you're talking about. Like, so Clay is really 3 parts: find, enrich, act. So find is get more people into the list. Enrich is like get more kind of properties or potential like pieces of information, and then act. And we haven't spent too much time on the act part yet, which is, what do you do with this? Do you send it back to your CRM? Do you send it back to your applicant tracking system? Do you send emails directly? But that's going to be something that we're working on next. And yeah, it's going to be pretty powerful.
Amazing. Shaf, do you have any questions?
I'm sorry, I'm mostly in the background, kind of like being mind blown by all of this. It's insane. No, because I've already had like my fair share of like playing around, because I have my own account with Play. So I've been playing around myself, and just having this kind of like, reinforce everything that I've kind of like discovered is just like insane to me. But one of the questions that I do have is about collaboration on Clay, and how is that possible?
Yeah, so I mean, everything is live. A lot of everything in the table is live in real time, and so you can definitely add a couple of people to a table and work simultaneously in it. There shouldn't be any issues with you like overwriting like other people's data, but I think that's going to come in more when we start adding features around like what's new. So let's say you have a list of all the people who signed up to your product, and you want to see who's a good fit. We can highlight all the people that are a good fit, and then maybe you'd manually go through them and assign them to people. So we've started to add a little bit of functionality around that. So we have a type of column called who's responsible for this, and anyone in your workspace, you can tag them, and it'll alert them that maybe they should go take a look and see if this is a good fit or not. But we're kind of in the early stages of that. It's mostly used to kind of build your own list, and each person can have their own table of leads, basically.
Does Clay have the idea of running user available, where it's like the person who's logged in could like see filtered based on them, or they have to manually filter for them?
No, so we have a concept of views, and the views are shared across users, but whenever you filter or sort or do anything...
So you filter it?
Yeah, you would create a view, and the view is shared across multiple people.
Got it. Very cool.
No, Phil, I was going to show you one more thing before your question. I think this is this is kind of like more exploratory, but it is an up-and-coming use case, which is, so we said like Clay is the world's first spreadsheet that does like automates data gathering. And a lot of it is like companies and people, but there are kind of like variations on that theme. So let's say, for example, that you want to pull data from Yelp, right? And I have, this is one of my favorite restaurants in the area. So let's say you have a list of restaurants or bars or anything that you're gathering data around. I already showed you with the Chrome extension how you can map a page. So this is a type of page which we've mapped, so we know that it's a Yelp page.
Yep.
Now that I've mapped it, Clay knows how to get this data. And so I can go to integrations, use our Clay scraper, say get data from page. I say the URL is in this column. And then this doesn't always work because scraping is
Scraping.
scraping and sometimes requires like you to run it more than once. But it should go and get the data from Yelp. And what's cool about this, there we go, is you can, get the number of reviews, for example, for this restaurant. And that could be one of the criteria. Either you're building this data set or you're qualifying. Again, it depends what you want to do. But once you have the data, you have a lot of options to work with there. And we're going to make it so that this table can auto-update. And in the future, actually, what I've been dreaming about is that instead of doing the work that I just showed you, which is selecting get data from page, connecting it to where the data is, you can paste anything into Clay, any link, and then we'll say, hey, we either know how to get data from here and here's some properties, or you can go and map it, and then once it's mapped, it's done forever.
I love it.
It's a database that understands the data.
So good, and you can share recipes across folks because it's just like how to map the metadata. It's not the actual data itself. So you're not like sharing data. You're just sharing like the structure, which who cares? Yeah. That is awesome. And I love that everyone who's using Clay is benefiting other people that are using Clay. Like the more people that use it, the more it benefits. That's amazing. So one thing we've thought about, I can imagine folks that are going to think about, right, is, okay, I want to use Clay for all this data, gathering, getting it, finding it, right, enriching it, maybe making certain high-level decisions on it, whatever. But let's say I want to then take that data, but I really, I'm the person connecting it, so I'm maybe, on the higher end of a technical side of like a no-coder, but I want my ops team to be working with this in the environments that they're used to, whether that's Airtable or like a Salesforce end user case or HubSpot, right? How would you live sync those so that your end users don't have to feel like they need to be in a spreadsheet, that they get that idea of an interface easily?
So we have the same way that we can pull data in, we can push data out. And so you can add a column, and people do this all the time. So you might create a list of prospects that you're looking for, and then you can actually check if they're already in HubSpot. So that's one column that calls HubSpot to see if they're already there. But then you can also create the contact in HubSpot if it's not there, right? Or create it in Salesforce, or push it into Airtable, or push it into Google Sheets.
And do you have two-way sync? So if someone then updates something in Airtable or Salesforce or whatever, it can push back, or is it really just one way?
So it's not automated in the sense that it's not like you just click a button and then it becomes a two-way sync. You would have to set it up manually. So you'd have to set up a source from Airtable or Google Sheets or Salesforce, and then you push it out. So we haven't decided yet how automated we want to do this, two-way sync, just because each person's workflow is a little different. And so we have the integrations in and out, and then you can kind of build it yourself.
And I'm sure at some point you'll work with some type of reverse ETL tool, like a Census or a Polytomic or something, where you can just let them do that work, of making the decisions of how to sync it properly.
Yeah. And the Census team is pretty cool. And I think that would make sense. This reverse ETL kind of concepts could also be helpful here.
Yeah, I love it. Shaf, any questions from the audience?
Yeah, we do actually, and I'm just about to invite him on stage if he's comfortable.
Oh, cool.
All right. Hey.
Dan, welcome.
thank you. For research and stuff, I'm wondering if it's possible to integrate with, YouTube or podcasts, because I'm big on like, what's the latest news about, no code tech, or about anything or a specific thing.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And this is kind of why we decided to put the product out there, because we have been seeing like a set of use cases, but I know that there's a lot of other integrations that would be useful. So yeah, we're a general purpose tool, right? So it's a spreadsheet connected to different data sources. And so all we have to do is add new integrations. And the way to do that initially, so if we don't have an integration, you can request it from us. So YouTube has an API, so we can pull data directly from them. And if that integration doesn't exist, you can call any API endpoint with Clay already. So let me show you what that looks like. So even if we don't have the integration to make it nice and easy to use, you can come here to Clay, and it's a bit hidden right now, but we're going to get it out and use what we call the HTTP API endpoint. And so, you can say get or post, and this is a little technical, but you just decide what the endpoint is that you want to send data for, decide what data gets sent in. Again, you can pick it from the data in the table or write things, and that way you can build your own integration. And then if you don't want to do that, you could also use the Chrome extension and go and map a page. So, and then you can use our scraper to go pull that data from it. So there's multiple ways. And what we're trying to do is to see, okay, what are people asking for? What are people scraping? Can we build like a first-class integration in there? And if not, people can always like push the product in new ways. Especially for sites where they don't have an API, this is super helpful.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank
Dan,
you.
Thanks for the question, man.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. And so, Kareem, last one for you is, how can people find out more about Clay? How can they get involved? Where can they follow you on social? Tell us all the things.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that question. Yeah, so you can sign up to Clay at clay.com. We have a public Slack group that you can join. You'll get put onto a free trial. Once you sign up, you can sign up for a demo with someone on the team that'll help you create like a personalized workflow, understand what you're trying to do, and help you get set up. And join our Slack group. There's a lot of great things happening there. We're talking about like how to get data from various places. It's also where we look for like people from the community to tell us what integrations we should build next. And yeah, you can follow me at Kareem Amin, AMIN, on Twitter.
Amazing. Anna, did you want to share something?
Oh, here I am. Hi. Okay. Phil and I are going to South by Southwest. And there's like a million events, a million speakers, and we really want to connect with the right people and make connections, build relationships, etc. So using the web scraper tool in Clay, I went to the event schedule and was able to get because the way that the South by Southwest website is set up is you can't, like, it's not set up in a user-friendly way where you can literally just like copy and paste the schedule. So you'll see here, it's like this, literally like this. So, but using the data scraper tool, I was able to like get the individual events URL, the title of it, the date, the speakers. And so what I'm going to do is from the speaker's name, I'll get their organization, their website, their email address, and like what their organization does, etc. I can also, from that information, get like their Twitter account name. And before we even go, we're going to like review this list, see the people we want to talk to, like in terms of what are they doing that we're super interested in, how we can like the best people to network with, basically, and then reach out to them before the event. So when we actually get to the event and meet in person, we can be like, oh, hey, we're Phil and Anna from Switchboard. We met on Twitter. We've been talking about X, Y, and Z. And I'm super excited about it. So that's what I wanted to share.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to do that so quickly. And then I see like some of the scraping things pulled like maybe some of the text next to it, but
Yeah.
I can definitely help you like make it more accurate so that it actually just pulls the name. And this kind of like what's cool about Clay is that once the data is in here, you can use regular spreadsheet things like split the name to clean it up and all that. But also the scraping can be more accurate. And that's why I think of it as a creative tool, because it's like you have to kind of try out a couple of different things until you get exactly what you want. And you can't get stuck. It's kind of like one of the core principles that we have. There's always like a solution.
That's awesome. Yeah, I ended up using a spreadsheet and splitting out the text. But that is a great point to actually be able to update the data scrape itself, so it doesn't come like it doesn't actually import like this or upload like this. So good to know.
Totally.
So before we head out, Kareem, thank you so much for your time, for sharing this stuff, for creating such an incredible tool with such a great team that, you know, we're big believers in us super early on. And Shaf, do you just want to give a quick plug for the No Code Ops newsletter and community?
Yeah, of course. So for all of you tuning in right now, please sign up for our newsletter and check us out at nocodeops.com. And that's also where you can sign up for our newsletter and also apply to our private community. So please check us out, and I cannot wait to chat with you.
Cool. Go team. Well, this is awesome. Have an awesome rest of the day, both of you. And Kareem, looking forward to just continuing watching the success of Clay. I'm rooting for #1 product hunt of the month.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Phil. And thanks, Shaf. Thanks for having me. And thanks for all the people that watched.
Cool. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.